play-by-email scenario, playing as Japan. Today's going to be the turn for December 10th, 1941. In our last turn, we featured our operations in most theaters moving apace, albeit with some mixed results depending on the warfare area. We did suffer a little bit of an unforced delay in Malaya due to incorrect settings on one of my amphibious task forces that I had to turn around. We had an absolute slaughter against the Allies in the air, but on the ocean we did have a ship get hit by a mine in the Philippines. We lost I think it was a cargo ship to a submarine in the South China Sea, and then we also had a cargo ship get bombed in Taiwan. So we're looking to clamp down on that a little bit for this turn and, get rid of those mistakes. So let's get right into it, starting with China. For the most part, China's still going to be on the quiet side. I'd say we're about a third of the way through the, I guess what we could call garrison reset operations. So as those start to progress, we'll start seeing a little bit more action building up. Last turn we did have a battle over here on the roadway next to Wuchang. Our armies at this point are being recalled. I don't care too much about these two guys to the south that are moving off towards the eastern coastline. Not all that concerned with them. What does concern me is the amount of enemy troops here around the Xinjiang area. So these guys are going to be moving back in, and we're going to start working on clearing these out and making sure that they can't block any of these railways. So further south here at Nanchang, we should be able to come into contact with these enemy units next turn. So we're looking at 2 days before we can actually kick them out. In Hong Kong, you'll notice there's a new enemy unit that's appeared here to the east of Canton. That's a bit of a concern if I was to basically throw everything I have here at Hong Kong. So for now, what I decided to do was split up the primary Hong Kong garrison, Canton garrison, into 3 parts, and 2 of those parts are going to be needed to sustain the garrison. That freed up 1 more unit to go out and start to attack these guys. It's still going to be this unit to the west. That's my priority, but we'll take care of these eastern guys soon enough. Okay, so moving on, we'll talk about the Malaya Theater next. So I mentioned before we had this task force that ended up turning around due to the settings were set not to unload their cargo, so they arrived and turned around without unloading. So they're headed to Patani now. They were originally headed to Kota Bharu, I think. But we now have these guys ready to unload at Patani. We have more aviation support ready to land at Kota Bharu, and through the rail lines we also have at least another division full of infantry ready to come in, along with additional air support. I'm guessing it'll be about 2 more days before we have an air HQ in Kota Bharu, so that'll work out fine. The major development I would say in this area is Kwantan. So we've taken the Kwantan base, but you'll notice here up on the screen, this air base is absolutely trashed with 77% runway damage. I do not want to try to land airplanes here while the damage is that severe, so I'm going to be giving this a couple days to repair. So unfortunately we're not going to be able to move our fighters in right away. Now that presents a possible problem because the Zero and Oscar pilots that are flying down from Kota Bharu and Patani and yes, even we still have them here at Sok Trung, they're getting fatigued, and that's going to be a problem if I want them alert and awake and able to stop waves of torpedo bombers that I keep mentioning. So we need to give them a bit of a rest. The good news on that front is the amphibious landings here at Kwantan have delivered all their troops. It's just supplies and fuel being landed for now, and Kwantan at 26,000 supplies actually has all the supplies it needs right now. So what I've done is I'm cutting this landing short, and I'm bringing these ships back up over to Singora, so that'll be on the rail line, and we'll be able to spread those supplies around as needed. Since we've got subs hanging around here, and because we'll probably be back, I'm going to leave a minefield here, so that's why we can see Task Force 102 has been detached to leave them a few presents. But basically, we're getting out of here for the time being, and that's going to allow the base to have a chance to repair and give our Zero pilots a rest, as they'll be flying much shorter distances, and I'll be having portions of their squadrons assigned to just resting. Also, I'm fairly sure that they're not going to need nearly as much protection up here. All indications for now are that they're really concentrating their bomber forces down here in Singapore. These bases all along the way as well. One's too low, so Malacca at an air base size 1, that's too low for offensive operations. This one at size 2 is big enough, but it's under reconnaissance and we don't see any aircraft deployed here. This one's too small again, and as far as we can tell, these have all been evacuated. So by sending our bombers up to Kota Baru, the anti-surface threat against them is very minimal. For offensive bomber operations, we are mostly doing interdictions at this point, trying to slow down and weaken enemy ground forces in the area. We are in contact with one unit, very weak units from the looks of it, and they're facing down our tank regiment here. So that's going to be a shock attack. We'll be getting rid of them fairly easily. Turning down further south, over here in Sambas, we have amphibiously landed troops in contact with a rather weak enemy unit, so that's going to be an attack that we'll be doing next turn. Same story at Miri, there will be attacks there. And that will, I think, do it for the Malaya Theater. So turning to the Philippines. This minefield over here was one of our early concerns, since we might end up losing a ship to it. I've assigned 6 destroyer minesweepers and 2 task forces to deal with this. We also have task forces that have finished reloading in Takao, so they'll be redeploying, getting a little bit more protection to this area. Our main cover force I've gone ahead and just ordered into San Fernando to try to clear out these PT boats and destroyers or whatever's left over here. Our paratroopers here at, what is that, Bayambang, they're coming into contact with enemy units. I believe these guys are probably forces, so actually I was going to say retreating from here at Tuguaro, but that's who this is. So these guys have actually advanced from either Clark or more likely due to the roads from Cabantuan. So it looks like the enemy is actually trying to affirmatively attack us here. So this is a rather defensible space. Jungle Rough, I think that's a +3 defensive modifier. And so I'm just continuing to send more of my paratroops here to shore these up, anticipating an attack from the enemy, and I'll just soak it up. I've got these guys set to a bombardment, not that they have that many guns. They've got, what, 2 mortars? So, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that. That's not going to accomplish much. But, you know, maybe we can take some enemy troops out as they try to attack us in the jungle here. Other than that, we do have our units in contact with enemy forces here in San Fernando. I'm not expecting a whole lot of resistance here, so we are ordering an attack. Not too many other troops landed yet. There's going to be multiple trips back and forth between Pescadores and Takao to get the full complement of troops here that's going to be necessary to take the major bases of Clark, Manila, and the Bataan Peninsula. For now, we may or may not have enough to push them back, but that's going to be our short-term goal. In the meantime, the Lilies flying out of Takao are going to be focused mainly on dealing with the enemy troops here to help push us over the top, while Sallies are going to be dealing with the airfield in Manila, since that's where most of the enemy aircraft appear to be. We're only showing 5 combat aircraft present in Clark Field, so probably mostly in Manila. And then our naval bombers will be doing a port attack, hopefully. I think I complained last turn that we had lots of port attack orders for Manila, and none of those ended up happening. So hopefully that'll happen again. Carrier Division 2 is now here. They are going to push south into the Sulu Sea in part so that they can perhaps intercept some of these task forces that have broken out of Manila. As they do that, I've broken off these destroyers that were part of the anti-submarine gauntlet just outside Manila. I'm a little bit more concerned about submarines on Carrier Division 2's path now than I am submarines escaping Manila itself. So these guys are going to blaze a little bit of a path ahead of Carrier Division 2 and try to make sure there's nobody waiting for us in these shallows as we transit them. Also, we have some dedicated ASW patrols focusing specifically on the area ahead instead of doing circular patrol, since I think this transit's a little bit risky. Moving up a little bit further south, so this surface group that's undetected, I've modified its patrol area a little bit to do kind of a barrier patrol around here. We're basically hoping that this guy's going to run into us. I'm not sure where this guy's going to go. So I'm just going to monitor him for now, unless he just really hauls ass to the east. I doubt we're going to lose contact with him since we've got so much naval search here. But we'll be keeping an eye on that. Here at Catawba, these troops are just going to start moving towards Cagayan at best speed. And we also have set up our first few aircraft on Jolo. As I mentioned before, this is going to be those kind of semi-worthless squadrons of Vels and Mabels that don't really do anything. But getting them all here at one base, maybe they'll do something. Maybe they'll do something to these ships if they start working their way towards the Celebes. In the closing remarks on my last turn, I mentioned how I was concerned about this task force being detected. To deal with that and also to provide some cover for the Monado operation, the light carrier task force is going to be moving back. So instead of patrolling this area up here, we're going to patrol down here, and hopefully if anybody wants to come up here through the Sarum Sea to try to ambush our amphibious task forces, it'll be us that gets the jump on them. And I think that will do it for the Philippines theater. So aside from that, there are a few remaining odds and ends, nothing too significant. The main Kido Butai Carrier Divisions 1 and 3 are now approaching Midway. I expect them to be able to strike during the PM phase next turn. So I've just allocated a few squadrons to hit their airbase and port. Very low expectations for this strike. The Americans have seen me coming for hundreds of miles, so there's not going to be anything of too much importance there. Down here in the Coral Sea area, the Kavieng landing is about to happen. That'll happen next turn. Some of these other ones are getting pretty close. So Shortlands looks like at least 2, maybe 3 days away. And I think I mentioned we also had forces heading for Tulagi. And a little bit further, this task force is intended for Rabaul, so that looks like 2 days. So 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that'll arrive in 2 days. After the task forces that are currently set to take bases in this area do take their bases, I'm planning on doing a little bit of an operational pause here. I'm a little bit concerned that this initial set of moves is maybe a little bit too much too early, especially since I still can't get my carriers here thanks to the escort situation. So that's probably going to take at least another 3 days to clear up. Meanwhile, Rabaul doesn't even start with a size 4 airfield, so that's insufficient to allow Bettys and Nels to operate with torpedoes. So I've already formed an amphibious task force from truck to follow up the main one, which is going to be delivering naval construction units, so we can hopefully get any airbase that we can have there built up to a size 4 right away, so that we can get some Bettys and Nils in there as soon as possible. We also have an air HQ headed this way from the Philippines, and there are further major infantry forces working their way to truck right now. So the next set of moves we'll be ready for, but while we're getting ready for that, we want to make sure we don't rush into Far Lake. I'm not going to go right after Port Moresby unless I have air cover in this area. If I don't, I'm just going to get picked off by Australian and American cruisers over here, if not carriers. They could easily be sending their carriers to this area as well. So I do want to have carrier divisions 1 and 3 down here as soon as possible, plus that air cover out of Rabaul. I think the only other thing going on is we're still waiting on Wake. You can see here the task forces for the Wake operation are these guys and this guy. So they're about to rendezvous. We're probably looking at 3 days, it looks like. Meanwhile, this task force transiting through is some reinforcements for the surface forces in the Solomon Sea area. So they're going to be heading for truck. I may, not this turn, but next turn, be splitting off some of these guys to join those forces at truck as well, since I think, in addition to the Kido Butai working their way here, 4 heavy cruisers is probably way more than we need here. Meanwhile, the Solomon Sea area is pretty desperate for further support. So yeah, that's going to do it for my intentions for this turn. We will see you next at the combat replay. Alright, welcome back to part 2 of the video. The combat replay for December 10th is now underway. Ooh, are we reacting to someone I thought I saw? Maybe something going on the coast of Malaya. Our invasion at Manado is proceeding here. Yeah, there is a task force over there by, I forget the name of the space next to Kuching. Can we see who they are? No. Alright, our minesweeping operations are proceeding at Vegan. And one of our minesweepers actually hits a mine. Hate to see that. Alright, let's see who we encountered here. So it looks like we're going to lose some more ships here. So that's the light cruiser Durban, along with 2 destroyers escorting it. I guess I'll just fast forward through this. Hopefully we unloaded all our troops already. Hopefully we can get an airstrike on these guys. Alright, so the patrol boat escapes. 1 cargo ship with heavy fires and heavy damage, including a torpedo hit. That one's going to be sunk. 3 shell hits on fire. This one's probably going to get away. And they're bugging out. Come on, airstrike. Alright, let's see what we've got here. This is 3 patrol boats for us. I think these are going to be minesweepers. No, so a patrol gunboat. Patrol gunboat versus a PB is probably a pretty even fight. So maybe 2 PGs and 2 minesweepers. And apparently they don't want any more fun than that. Alright, so the really small PB of mine is in bad shape. It doesn't look like we did that much damage to him. Getting lots of reports of encounters, but not necessarily proceeding. So here we have a Australian light cruiser trying to intercept my mine layers, moving into Rabaul. Yeah, this isn't good.
Hello, my misguided friends. This is your number one enemy, Orphan Anne, from Radio Tokyo, with another blow to your morale and some music to console you. Today, the Imperial government announced that the Imperial Navy has achieved another great victory near Rabaul, with the sinking of 2 carriers, a battleship, and numerous cruisers and destroyers.
Alright, thank you, Tokyo Rose. And it looks like the cruiser is chasing us down as we try to run away. Oof, that was a bad hit. Too. Looks like we're going to lose both these ships now. Alright, that's it. We get it. We got our asses kicked. 2 cruiser mine layers sunk. Is that cruiser going to go all the way to Kavieng? Looks like it did. Yeah, we seem to have a lot of task forces that aren't sure what they should be doing with all these threat task forces around. Well, there goes the minesweeper that hit a mine. Alright, so this looks like the Australian light cruiser has gone all the way to Kavieng and is going to interfere with our landing there. Hopefully these guys are already disembarked. Just gonna skip this. Well, still had troops aboard, so that's not good. The PB's heavily damaged, 1 light cargo ship damaged, but no one's sinking yet. So now they're going to try to run to truck. Damaged PB goes down. Yep, another one of our ships goes. Alright, so our task forces for the north coast of Dutch New Guinea are starting to arrive now. These are probably relatively safe operations compared to what we're seeing in the Solomon Sea area. Pretty substantial shore battery shooting back at us at Manado. No hits. Ternate landings beginning. Not a lot of resistance there. troops in Brunei. Hopefully when we take Miri, the enemy troops are just going to retreat straight to Brunei, so they'll still be in a position for us to kill them. Alright, let's get some airstrikes. Now that 75mm battery at Granada is doing some good for the enemy. 4 hits. Not any severe damage though, so looks like we're doing okay. Alright, let's get this sub. I'm seeing a lot of messages that the depth charges are detonating above sub depth. However, these are the Mod 2 depth charges. They should be able to get deep. Disappointing. Disappointing. It sounds like an enemy ship just hit a mine. Let's get some enemy ships. Let's get some payback. Alright, so now have the airstrikes on Manila, since these are Nels. This is going to be a port strike. Got a decent amount of Zeros acting as escorts. So hopefully we'll be able to get all the bombers through without problems. I'm a little bit worried about pilot fatigue with the amount of combat these Zeros have been seeing. So far, so good. They got through the bombers. I wonder if that's something that the fatigue causes. Alright, not too bad. Just 2 bombers lost. It could be a lot worse. Okay, maybe I misspoke. We're seeing these guys attacking the airfield. So I probably had the Nels assigned to the airfield and the Bettys assigned to the port. So overall, that was 3 P-40s and a P-26 for the enemy, and then a 0 and 2 Nels for us. Yeah, once again, we're seeing the combat reports being a little bit inaccurate. Alright, got a sweep coming in at Manila. Would have been nice if these guys arrived first. Alright, so 2 more P-40s down with no losses. Can't complain about that. And the next sweep finds clear skies, so should be smooth sailing from here for any more bombers that want to make their way there. Got some nasty thunderstorms here in San Fernando, so that limits the effectiveness of the Lilies. Nothing disabled, but nothing destroyed, but 5 squads disabled. Be a little bit of help for the troops. Sally's given the air base at Manila a good working over. Get at least 1 more aircraft destroyed on the ground, plus some damaged. minor raid here in China intended to slow these enemy land units down enough so that we can prevent them from escaping across the river. Similar here, we're just keeping the pressure on this guy so he can't move on the road east. Or at least can't move very fast. I think this is Alor Star. So just softening up this ground unit before we reach him with our own units. Same thing here at just outside of Georgetown. No casualties here. That's disappointing. And we're still softening up the enemy troops in Hong Kong. I think I could probably use this bomber better elsewhere. So these may attack the Canton armies next turn. Okay. So the enemy bombers are coming back to Taihoku. They had some success last turn bombing some ships here. This time we have nades on cap. They still get through. A lot of the times just the presence of nates is enough to get these DB3s to turn around, but not today. Fortunately, they didn't hit anything. A city attack? Why would they be doing a city attack? So there is a little bit of resource and oil production here. I guess that's what he was going after. There goes another one of the patrol boats. That was the one that was intercepted by their patrol gunboats and minesweepers. Well, we're now in the afternoon phase. Looks like any enemy ships in the Malaya area that tried to interfere have managed to get away and disappear. There's a nice little strike. Mabel's out of Jolo have found some light cargo ships, or maybe just one light cargo ship, sheltering at Tolad Island. Not sure how to pronounce that. But we are seeing, looks like the enemy's trying to evacuate the Philippines out to the east, avoiding the Sulu and Celebes Seas. So that's a bit of a cause for an adjustment here. Of course, this is just an AKL, so that doesn't necessarily mean anything valuable is going this way. Could just be a feint. Ugh, more SB3s getting past our nades. Might have to upgrade some of these guys to Oscars sooner rather than later. Oh, what the hell? No cap. Fortunately, just a destroyer. Yeah, looks like I might have screwed something up here again. We've got plenty of task forces operating at Singapore. I wonder who those guys are. Safe bet one of them's that cruiser that attacked us. Alright, more strikes on Manila. This is Carrier Division 2 finally getting in on the action. So this will definitely be a port strike. Alright, hits on submarines and a subtender. let's see what we got. Tarpon with heavy damage. It's probably already heavily damaged, or else it would have gotten out of there. Subtender almost certainly going to sink. AKL sunk. This transport's probably fine. AKL sunk. President Madison, I'm pretty sure, was already damaged, so more heavy fires and heavy damage, it's going to be gone. Same story with this cargo ship. That's probably going to sink. So, not bad. Would like to see more submarines getting hit, but maybe there aren't any there to hit anymore. Probably more ships in Manila going down. Naru's basically in our hands at this point. Alright, moving on to the land combat phase. 1st Tank Regiment is forcing some enemy troops to retreat outside of Georgetown. Casualties are pretty light for the enemy, and we take none. Bombarding at Hong Kong again, not expecting much out of this. Oof. Actually, with casualties on us being pretty significant, I'm going to have to stop this for the next turn. I don't like seeing 2 destroyed squads over a bombard. Same here. Yeah, so that's near Kaifeng. That needs to stop. Alright, so deliberate attack on San Fernando. The enemy's forces are fairly significant here, so they're going to hold on. Casualties are more on us than they are on him, so we definitely need to get more land forces here before we can evict these units. Were these Philippine or... yeah, these are Philippine, not American. So they aren't... we don't expect the Philippine army to fight too tough, but clearly we need more than what we've got here so far. Manado we're hitting with a regiment, so hopefully this will go pretty quickly. Yes, captured. Miri, 42 AV to 0. That should be an easy win. Brunei we just landed on, so that'll be something we do next turn. Ren detection, or sorry, Ren detachment is basically nobody. So that gets brushed aside quite easily. These guys, only one has any AV, so looks like we're going to win here. Also implying that even though our ships got attacked here, they got the job done and delivered the troops. Only 2 squads disabled for us. That's good news as we continue to take the rest of this peninsula. Ooh! This is a tank battalion that the Americans moved in here. So yeah, I'm gonna guess these guys are gonna attack. Let's see how my paratroopers are gonna hold out in the mountains against tanks. Speaking of which... I'm a little surprised I had forts to reduce. Adjusted assault only has the enemy slightly higher than my defense value. So, 15 squads destroyed. Hey, at least we're holding on. Definitely going to have to move in bigger forces to deal with these tanks. no casualties from the Allied bombardment of Hong Kong. Landing further paratroops on the bases that have been vacated by the retreating Philippine army here. We're just really trying to consolidate our paratroops over here where the tanks are. Alright, quick post-turn analysis. That was a very mixed turn. Although fortunately, in spite of our naval losses, this is our second highest reported gain in victory points. I'm sure that's because of the number of bases that we took down. Air losses are a lot more even this turn than they were last turn, and a lot of the reason for that is because operational losses for us were relatively high at 3 aircraft. This was brought on in part by a number of landing incidents with the main Kido Butai while it was failing to launch its ordered strikes on Midway today. But air-to-air combat in particular still went our way with 7 losses to the Allies compared to 4 of ours. Ships sunk was not something I was happy about today. We did get 4 enemy ships reportedly. So 2 AKLs sunk in Manila, the port. Another AKL picked off as it was trying to escape by Mabel's. And then a pleasant surprise here on this list is the destroyer Thracian. This is one of the escapees from Hong Kong, and reportedly that's who hit a mine that we heard. So that's very good news that that happened. However, we of course still continue to take rather unnecessary losses. So we lost 2 cruiser mine layers that were on their way to Rabaul to set up a defensive defensive set of mines there. We had patrol boats sunk outside Manila Harbor as well as in the Malaya Theater. And then we're also showing a cargo ship that was sunk to a torpedo. So that would have been also right off the tip of Sinkawang there by the enemy cruiser and destroyer formation. And then on top of everything, we end up losing a minesweeper to a mine, which is always a real happy irony when it happens to the other guy. Pilot losses for today were not so great. 2 killed, 2 wounded, 1 missing in action. Considering the relatively low number of planes that we lost, that's kind of a high number of pilots out of action. Turning to Malaya, our results here were kind of mixed. So we did lose ships and have our landing around Sambas disrupted. Fortunately, not disrupted enough. Pretty much the full landing of Marines got ashore and were able to take the base. Over at Kuching, we've also landed additional construction engineers. This base is now fully repaired and the airfield is now expanding. Over at Miri, we've ejected the enemy base forces there. They didn't join their friends in Brunei. I'm a little disappointed about that, but we'll still get Brunei next. And it doesn't appear that the enemy wants to proceed any further east than Kuching. Our temporary retreat back up to Kota Baru appears to have worked. We did leave an ASW force behind on accident. So these guys got attacked by torpedo bombers and fortunately got away with it. We did manage to clear out the hex next to Georgetown, so these tanks and soon other personnel behind them will start following through. The task force that was... Oh no, this is somebody else. Sorry, I was about to say the task force that got turned around. didn't make it yet, but this is actually the task force that was at Kwanton. So they're back in the Batani area where they should be, and then the task force that I actually turned around was this one, Task Force 10. They're unloading now, so we only lost 1 day, thanks to my mistake with these guys. Turning over to the Philippines, we did take some losses thanks to basically a breakout of armed enemy ships from Manila Port. They ran into some relatively poorly armed ships of ours, the patrol boats, so we ended up losing one, and I think another might have been damaged. We can see there are Manila escapees all the way up here, which I don't believe these guys were engaged at all. This formation here is probably the patrol gunboats and minesweepers that we had a surface combat incident with. And then we don't know who these guys are. And then, of course, we have the AKLs that made it over here to Talaud. Carrier Division 2 has made it to the Sulu Sea. They made their Manila port strike. May have finished off a submarine while they were there. Still would really like to see these guys engage some of these ships, since that's kind of their primary mission while they're here. We do have a group of destroyers that's reinforcing Carrier Division 2. Who knows, maybe I'll get lucky and these guys will intercept some of these ships coming through. This heavy task force here is still undetected, but it looks like for now everybody's going around. So I may restructure my task forces around here. I've got a heavy cruiser here with Jolo that's not doing much. The Catawba invasion force has 2 heavy cruisers. So well, who knows? There might be enough here to scrap a surface fleet together and have them patrol the waters to the east of the Philippines. It does look like the enemy cap is breaking up here, so that's some good news. On the other hand, we are seeing significant resistance on land, and part of the reason for that is that we're landing too slow. Most of the military units on Vigan are either engineers or artillery right now, very little infantry, and I'm noticing that these amphibious fleets that have landed so far, a lot of them have, like, some of the ships are empty and others are still unloading. So what I'm going to need to do is find these ships that have finished unloading, separate them from their task forces, get them back to Tacao or Pescadores, get them back loaded up with infantry, and get them back to Luzon. Because this delay in getting everyone ashore is really hurting us. Mentioned we lost a minesweeper clearing Vigan, but it does look like the minesweepers ultimately did their job in that there are no mines left in this area. Going forward, it looks like with the enemy cap broken, more or less, I can pay a little bit less attention to their air bases and maybe more attention to breaking these units. Especially if I'm going to end up losing these guys to the enemy tanks. Maybe hitting these guys at some bomber raids will disrupt them a little bit and prevent that. I also have surface task forces that have returned, such as this one that previously bombarded Iba. So that's a possibility to use to break up some of the resistance we're seeing over at San Fernando. Of course, they can't help with the inland base. Another possibility is this guy. So these guys are landing infantry over at Naga. Maybe I can make an adjustment. I'm thinking this road hex over here looks kind of tempting. Here, I'm going to turn the hex sides on for a moment. So a lot of these hexes are not eligible to be entered by ships. But this one is, and it has a road. So I'm wondering if maybe I could land these guys here, move my forces directly inward, take Cabanatuan. But if I do that, and then move some of those guys up, I'll have those enemy tanks trapped and unable to participate in the defense of Manila and Clark meaningfully any further. So that might be a fun little move. A lot of people have house rules against landing on spaces which don't have at least dot bases, but we don't have that rule, and I'm pretty sure my opponent made some landings on spaces that weren't bases last campaign, so I'm thinking that's something I could probably do. Over here by Midway, Keto Butai Prime did land, or they finished their turn 6 hexes away from Midway, and declined to launch the airstrike that I ordered. Thanks, guys. But their reinforcements are arriving, so maybe with the 4 extra ships, I'll be willing to split these guys up, which brings me to the next major concern, which is the Solomon Sea area. So the enemy wiped out the mine layers headed for Rabaul. They disrupted our Kavieng landings. That task force ended up being split up. These guys are taking their portion of the 66th Naval Guard. They were just evacuating. I'm going to go ahead and have them land here just because the ship's still on fire, and I think that's the safest move. The rest of these guys are retreating to truck, and that might not be a bad idea since we know that cruiser's still around here somewhere. I have 1 cruiser arriving and about to rendezvous with my Rabaul invasion task force. I have 1 more on the way, and I'm really thinking, because of the situation here, I mentioned in the setup that I was thinking about an operational pause here on the next turn. Looks like that pause probably came a turn too slow. So I just really need to consolidate to protect these guys a little bit. I do have a surface combat task force, which is getting close. Yes, up here. So that's still probably 3 days away. But it's something, and I can hopefully get Carrier Division 3 here pretty soon as well. So that's going to do it for now. I'll go ahead and see you guys in the next video for the setup for the December 11th turn.